Hello, everybody. Welcome. I am Lee Camp, joined by the always amazing Eleanor Goldfield. You are Eleanor Goldfield. Don't shake your head like that. And it is day...
I'm wearing her underwear, at least. I'm not always amazing, though.
Kinky. It is day 161, I believe, of Israel's special genocide operation that is ongoing. Over 31,340 people have been killed, but that does not count those lost in the rubble, which are almost certainly dead, who are almost certainly dead. So it is 40,000 people that have been killed by Israel in this ongoing genocide operation. And thank you for joining your two favorite anti-Zionist Jews. I think we're their favorite of the ones out there. I wanted to start by showing this real quick. This is just a quick clip of it, but it was just a couple of days ago when protesters blocked the distribution of one of the biggest propaganda outlets for this ongoing genocide, the New York Times. And they blocked it by using humans partially, but also by, as you can see, putting tons of rubble there, bricks, rocks, whatever they could get to get in the way of the trucks. And I thought it brings to mind the discussion of how best to protest these things. And you what they've done really great here is look for the weak points of this ongoing propaganda machine or the ongoing war machine. We're going to talk more about that coming up. You find those weak points and you get in the way and interrupt business as usual in those weak points.
Yeah, absolutely. That's brilliant. I love seeing tactics like this. This is very cool. This is a great way to also block things when you don't have a lot of people. Yeah, we saw this with Cop City as well, putting rubble in the way of cops and things. Very, very well played.
Well played indeed. And, the ongoing genocide has various aspects to it. And one of those is the propaganda that's needed to facilitate said genocide. Here's just another fact. I just, as these facts come forward, I just keep bringing all the ones I can find as people, make them available. Children killed in this conflict over the past 5 months, it is equivalent, or actually more, than all children killed in all conflicts over the past 4 years. So 5 months versus 4 years of wars around the world, more children have been killed in these 5 months. And again, that speaks to how this is a genocide and not modern warfare. Modern warfare between two sides, you don't see anywhere near this number of children because the two sides are trying to kill the other fighters or the other people that run the society. It's still horrific, but it's not this gruesome attack on children.
I'd also like to say that that's too many children in 4 years as well.
No, I was fine with that. So the one on the left, I'm fine with. Kill all those kids. But
I thought you were going to say it's more kids than have died in the past 20 years. And no, you were just 4 years. And I'm like, that's not okay.
Not meaning Israel hasn't killed many kids. You're saying too many kids have died.
No, just that it feels like the number of 13,000 kids just feels like something that if it weren't a genocide, it would take 20 years, even with as grotesque of an empire as we are and, facilitating so much horrors worldwide. It still feels like I'm shocked by both is my point. I'm disgusted by both.
Yeah. I hear you and I feel you and you are heard. I
didn't really need you to hear me. I just needed to emote.
No, I totally agree with everything you say. So I wanted to get to this. So we're going to be bringing you some proof, some more evidence that Israel's support for this genocide is collapsing, even in the halls of Congress, even in front of those sociopaths. We'll be bringing you that. We'll be bringing you mapping the war profiteers around this country. That and a very, very important issue that is connected, of course, to this genocide, because these are American-made bombs that are being dropped on children and innocent people daily. We have so much for you in this hour. Please click thumbs up. Please click subscribe. Please click those things. Also, if you're not watching this live, which I know 95% of you do not watch it live, there is now a way to support the show, even if you're not watching live. Used to be super chats were only live, but now you can click if you're logged into YouTube, you can click the thanks button under the video and throw a tip that way, little thanks tip. And that helps support the show as well. People in the chat are mentioning Rachel Corrie because it's been, did I read 21 years? Maybe someone in the chat can tell me. It's been, maybe I have that number completely wrong. But anyway, it's the anniversary.
No, it's been a while.
It's the anniversary of when Rachel Corrie, the American protester, was killed in Israel by that horrific apartheid regime.
She's basically like run over by a bulldozer. She was trying to protect a home.
10-year anniversary? 10 years. Okay.
No. They're saying there is a video of Rachel Corrie as a 10. It's definitely been more than 10 years.
21 years. Okay.
Yeah, I remember the 10-year anniversary a while ago.
According to Pink Latex, which is who I'd like to ask about this, they say 21 years.
Don't you have a joke about like your first email address and how it's always like my dingle 214 at Gmail or something?
I don't think that's me.
Oh,
I did when
somebody has a hilarious joke about like trying to like start work and start your professional career using your first email address.
That's funny. I hate when you quote other comedians. Can you not do that ever again? Ever. I'll keep this to a 2-sentence story. When we first logged on in the first ever time to AOL when I was like 12, we couldn't get a screen name because they were all taken or whatever. And so my older brother goes, let's just see if this thing's even working. And he types in frog ass 9. And it goes, welcome, that's your screen name. And at AOL at the time, you could not change that. So we are then frog ass 9, me and 12-year-old, my brother 9 or 8 or something. And awesome. AOL then like a week later banned us for using profanity in our screen name.
Wow, so you have a history of censorship is what you're saying.
I've been censored for years and years, man. Okay, so let's get to this talk of ceasefire. Okay, so that has become the call, right? Ceasefire now, ceasefire this, even some celebrities, and I'm glad they're speaking out are saying ceasefire. So I'm glad that's happening, but you brought up a great point, and we're going to quote from a great presentation on Instagram about how ceasefire is not enough. Ceasefire during a genocide it's like a Band-Aid on a genocide. It's really not enough.
Well, right. And it's like a ceasefire, meaning what exactly? Like the ceasefire that already happened where they stopped for what was it, like 6 days or something? Okay, that doesn't help. That doesn't address it certainly doesn't address the cause, but it doesn't even mitigate the suffering because again, people are starving. People can continue to starve during a ceasefire. Does that help? Obviously not. So this very cool account called Abolish the USA, which I don't disagree, on Instagram, put up a series of slides that basically talk about how even just the term ceasefire has been co-opted. I mean, just like a lot of terms like Black Lives Matter and things like that have been co-opted by the people who just who are more concerned, like they point out, about Israeli hostages, or they want to see things return to October 6th, right? They want to have things return to the violent occupation that just wasn't genocide, right? And the importance of highlighting that this is bullshit. Like, this is not what we are fighting for. This is not what we want to see happen. What we need to see happen is decolonization. And that is inherently deeply different than a momentary pause in genocide. It is very different from peace, which is another co-opted term, really, because you can't have peace in an ongoing apartheid violent occupation. There's no such thing as peace in that kind of system, just like there's no such thing as peace in the United States, even though we technically are a nation that is not in any kind of like civil war at the moment. Would you honestly say that we live in a peaceful society?
Well, and you mentioned the hostages, and you talk about going back to October 6th. And, oh, well, if we had a ceasefire, we can go back to October 6th. October 6th, Israel had 5,000 Palestinian hostages in their prisons. So many of them for lifetime terms, many of them women and children. So the idea that if you go back to October 6th, all is fine. Just in the hostage area, I'm not even talking about the settlements and all the other brutalities and the snipers killing people in Gaza, etc. I'm talking just in terms of hostages. October 6th, 5,000 hostages in Israeli prisons.
Right. And also this kind of false equivalency, this both sidesism that also speaks to. A ceasefire suggests that there are people fighting on both sides, right? Like you call for a ceasefire in a war.
Right. Well, they like to call it a war too.
Right. But you don't call for a ceasefire in a genocide. You just call for the genocide to stop happening. It would be ridiculous to call for a ceasefire if you looked at like what was happening with the colonization of the so-called United States or of Africa. It's like a ceasefire, you're genociding people. So that is also an important thing to highlight. And basically, like just highlighting how important it is to recognize the difference between decolonization and a ceasefire, and what we really need to be pushing for. And now I'm not like, if you have a banner at home that says like ceasefire now, like I'm not saying like go burn it or some shit. I'm just saying
I've got
like,
half the tattoo done. It just says cease, and now you're saying quit.
How about cease colonization? You're just going to have to get a little bit more. Could you make it like some more arm?
I could make it Caesar. And I'm a big fan of Caesar.
I think you spell that differently.
Damn it.
I think it's A.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Sorry. Also, Caesar salad is like way overrated.
Also, Caesar was kind of a dictator, wasn't he?
He's overrated too, but I thought you meant the salad.
Just salad. I love how I say Caesar and you immediately think salad.
Because I love to eat. This is not okay. Because I find the salad more interesting than the person. Anyway, this is not the point. Also, Caesar was just like a name for the emperor, so a lot of people were Caesars. But that's a different story.
That is true.
So
all right, Sherry kicking off the super chats. Thank you for that.
So yeah, just really important to recognize the difference between, and also recognize like how quickly this happens, how quickly terms can be co-opted. So like, it's not rad to say Black Lives Matter, right? It is like, it's not rad to call for green energy. Like all of these things have been co-opted, like mostly by the Democrats. So, Kamala Harris calling for a ceasefire does not mean that she's rad. It does not mean that she's on the right side of history. These people are perpetuating genocide and making you think that they want a ceasefire, and it's just that their hands are tied. So,
can I just add one thing? So part of it is the co-option, is that a word? Co-optation?
Co-optation, I believe.
Co-optation of this, but I guess co-option would be two options. But the co-optation of it, but even from the start, ceasefire, even before the co-optation, ceasefire was too weak. And I'm not saying don't call for a ceasefire. I'm calling for a ceasefire, of course, but it is it's like the minimum. It's like calling for aid to get in. Can we give them food while we genocide them? Can you please drop more bags of cereal with parachutes while we genocide you? Like, it is the minimum of what we should be calling for. So for those of us who are far more awake than Kamala Harris and far more less of a representative of the empire, we should be calling for more than ceasefire. We should be calling for prosecution of war criminals. We should be calling for an end to the apartheid regime. And it's the same. You mentioned Black Lives Matter. It's the same with Black Lives Matter. Like, the slogan that should have caught fire should have been far grander than just Black lives are a thing,
Right. Well, and like, it's also very empty. It's also very vapid. It's like, okay, so what were you saying? Like, Black lives are a thing, okay, and then what? How are we addressing that? Really, the actual problem is that Black death is much more of a thing in this country. And what are we doing to mitigate that? What are we doing to stop that? What are we doing to tear down the systems that make that okay? What are we doing to actually finally abolish slavery in this country because it's still legal? Like, it never reaches. It's just like a flimsy slogan. And so I agree with you. Like, at the very beginning, this was this was absolutely too little, even at the very beginning. And so I think that it's important to highlight that and to recognize that we have way more to demand than just a ceasefire.
The other thing that was stressing me out, or I don't know if stressing out's the right word, but these people put more words to it, but was every time I heard them say ceasefire, let's say the celebrities, or let's say, I mean, hell, you got Chuck Schumer saying there needs to be a ceasefire, Mr. Zionist himself, Mr. Let's fund Israel as much as we possibly can. When I heard them saying it, I was like, okay, so let's say tomorrow there's a ceasefire. Does that mean everything's fine? Does that mean like, so even from the beginning of these calls for ceasefire, I was like, if Israel stops bombing tomorrow, I'm not like, all right, cool, next story. And I know you're not either. Like, there's so many people who are not like, now it's fine.
I also think it's hilarious that Kamala Harris is calling for a ceasefire. It's like,
go talk to somebody you might know.
You're the person. Like, no, we call for something. You do the thing.
Yeah.
It's like Biden being like, I'm calling for a presidential signature on this. It's like, yeah,
dude, and Biden does that. Biden does that too, and he's doing it with Israel, where he's like, they need to respect civilians and stop, and we need to get more aid in. And it's like, yeah, you should go talk to someone who has power, right? Power over Israel. And
well, and like somebody just put in the chat, Chuck doesn't mean it. Like, of course he doesn't, and of course that's kind of the point too, right? Like, then that's what Democrats are really good at. Is they make it look like they care about something, or that they're listening to you, like, oh, I hear you, like Lee did sarcastically earlier. I hear you. I'm listening to like what you have to say.
I didn't do it sarcastically. I'm being serious.
Oh, you definitely like.
You thought I was being sarcastic?
Yeah, I think your like your normal sounds a bit sarcastic. Anyway, I mean, I dig it. I didn't like take offense.
That'd be so dickish, though. You finished talking, and I'm like, I hear you. Nah,
well, that's why I
said.
That's why I said I didn't need you to hear me, because I thought you were bullshitting me and I was bullshitting you back.
No,
anyway,
I would
okay.
never do that.
Well, I'm not mad. I just misread the situation. Anyway.
It's the shittiest co-host in the world. I hear you not.
So, but it's like, that's what they do, right? They basically just say, oh yeah, no, I totally hear what you're saying. And then they co-opt that language and completely continue with what they were doing in the first place, which at this point is, of course, perpetuating genocide. And I'm not even going to say they're dropping aid, because they're not. Aid, like, this is another thing. Aid, the word aid, like when we say mutual aid, we are actually saying things that help people survive and thrive. What they're tossing at Gaza right now is not aid. And we could talk about that later too, but it's like,
well, also the
shit you're dropping is shit.
I'll wait a minute before I pull up that next screen. Go ahead and explain what you're saying. That the food that is being dropped is not actually good for starving people, and in many ways is not helpful. And I'll just, before you do that, I'll just throw in also Israel is then bombing and shooting the places where the aid drops. But
well, of course, even if it was proper aid, it would still not be enough because you're still getting bombed. And again, the aid trucks that could be coming in through 7 different entrances into Gaza are not being let through. So this is a post by the Institute for Policy Studies that they share something that is a good thing to remember. You can't just give starving people a bunch of food. It's called the refeeding syndrome. And apparently, like, basically the breakdown is it's a metabolic disturbance which occurs as a result of reinstitution of nutrition in people who are starved or severely malnourished. When too much food or liquid nutrition is eaten during the initial 4 to 7 days following malnutrition, the production of glycogen, fat, and protein in cells can basically cause neurologic, pulmonary, cardiac, neuromuscular, and hematologic symptoms, many of which could result in death, particularly in children. So that's why, like, if somebody's starving, they'll oftentimes be like on a drip with just like some basic nutrients, because you have to like recalibrate your system to start taking in food, and because like systems have started shutting down. So you can't actually just drop a bunch of food that's meant for, this food is meant for soldiers, like adult soldiers, right? It's like this process. That's another story. It's like this heavily processed food that's supposed to like stay,
stay good through a nuclear fallout.
So it probably doesn't agree even with like, adult, well-fed soldiers, but you're giving this to starving kids, they could very easily die from it. So that's something that the Institute for Policy Studies pointed out. They're also saying that like, this is not unusual for the US to like completely misconstrue and co-opt the word aid. They point out that in 2001, US forces airdropped food into Afghanistan, the country that we had invaded, just in case people forgot. The yellow packaging matched cluster bombs that the US was also dropping. So children who thought these yellow packets were food picked them up and then were blown up because they were actually cluster bombs.
So the U.S. has a history of killing people with food drops. And by the way, several of these food drops did drop on people and kill them.
Right. So if they're not killing them because they're completely not the right thing to give to starving people, they're actually literally killing them by falling on them.
But let's also remember that the number one thing the U.S., although we hear all about the aid, right? If you turn on CNN and Fox News, we hear all about the aid that's been going, we're going to build a pier. We're going to make it a pier. We're doing anything. But the number one thing that the U.S. is still shipping over there is bombs. Joe Biden is shipping weapons to Israel every 36 hours. There have been more than 100 smaller munition sales, allowing the president to keep the posture as a peacekeeper.
What is smaller?
Yeah, I guess that means like bullets as opposed to bombs, while U.S. weapons wipe Gaza off the map. So in case you were wondering, we hear so much talk about what the U.S. is doing to aid Gaza. Well, the number one thing we're shipping over there is still weapons to murder the Gazans. So in case anyone was unsure.
And on that note, I am not at all suggesting that anybody block those shipments.
No.
Because that's illegal.
No, do not.
And I would never suggest that you do anything illegal.
Never.
So this is a map. This was put together by Christian Sorensen, who is an Air Force veteran and total badass. He has a site that is called The Business of War, where he shares really vital and powerful information as somebody who has been on the inside. And one of the things that he recently shared, actually it's from November, but it's obviously still very viable. It's mapping the business of war. And it's this map, it summarizes facilities from Lockheed Martin, RTX, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, General Dynamics, and L3 Harris. Is that how you say that? Or is L3 Harris?
Yeah,
or I'm like,
I actually didn't know about. You don't
La
think
Harris?
You don't think it's La Harris? La Harris has arrived.
I don't know. These
I
people
don't
are fighting like they're.
I don't know. By the way, RTX is Raytheon. They just changed their name so that you wouldn't know the Raytheon because
It's like X.
it's
Remember
like it's very
when
similar.
Anyway, so this.
Oh, you mean Z?
Oh, I'm sorry, Z.
Yes. No, Twitter is X now.
Twitter is X. I'm sorry.
Twitter is
What
X.
is up with everybody at the back ass end of the alphabet?
Everyone loves an X. No, Z was spelled XE. So everyone loves an X.
No. The one that Eric Prince.
It was Z spelled XE.
Was it?
Like xylophone. Z, XE.
I know how to spell xylophone. Thank you.
So it still had an X.
Okay.
So I'm just saying they all love X. They just find
So I
that
wasn't
so
wrong,
cool.
because I was thinking of the logo in my head.
You were very close.
Okay, thank you.
I was going to tell you that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so
By the way, everybody, Z was the new name for Blackwater because they realized that Blackwater had become known for massacring human beings.
As a
Israel,
mercenary.
by the way, changed their name recently to Xylophone.
oh, yeah, okay. So the map that Christian put together, it shows, among other things, facilities where these weapons are manufactured, like actual factories. It also shows, corporate headquarters and things like that, but it shows where those weapons are manufactured. So someone could potentially like block it like they did with the New York Times,
don't recommend.
which I'm not saying you should do because that would be illegal.
Do not do that.
So I'm just saying that's something someone could do with information gleaned.
But shortly before right now, Eleanor heard from Christian and he gave you a bit of an update.
Well, click on the map, Lee.
Okay. Let's see what the map shows. Boop.
No,
Nothing.
no, you gotta click on it like you mean it. Thank you.
There we go. This is what. Oh, it didn't.
Oh, it doesn't. It has you. Oh, it's opened a new window.
Oh, it's a new window.
Share the new window.
Okay.
Drum roll.
Okay. So when you click on that map, you now get this.
This map is no longer available due to a violation of our terms and services. And Christian wrote to me.
And/or policies.
He wrote, it's a violation of the dangerous and illegal activities policy. Which is dumb because it's just a map.
Also,
whatever you choose to do with it, you can send those people flowers too. Like there is nothing illegal about showing a map of where something is.
Also, Google has Google works with Israel for their genocidal.
Well, that's what I wrote to him. I was like,
Project Nimbus.
Well, I'm shocked considering. However, for folks interested, I have asked Christian if there's like a list of those addresses available in case you would like to send flowers.
So send flowers. So we're working on a list of the addresses in case you know you again want to send chocolates maybe go get them, kill those kids in Gaza holiday card, because Hallmark makes a beautiful thanks for being a weapons contractor. May the blood on your hands be copious card. That is beautiful. It's beautiful. You don't like the card? I do.
I do. I was. Okay. See, here's this. I was never good at improv. I start thinking about like what my response could be, and then I realize it's been like a long time. It's been like several seconds, and now I can't say anything. But even if I have a good comeback, it's too late. I've missed it. I've missed the window, Lee, and so like the ferry has left the dock, and I can only fall into the water at this point. I can't reach the ferry anymore.
I think you.
So it's
I
done.
think you summed it up well. Although during those moments of silence, I think it's because you didn't like what I said or are not interested, and you're like, could you just move on? This is stupid.
It's because I am working, like the gerbils in my brain are working overdrive to try and respond to you, and there's so many ideas firing off that I just remain silent, and then it's too late.
Okay, moving on. Biden's shipping of these weapons coming from these military plants, so these weapons contractors plants, could. Whoa, second time it's done that. Man.
Well, now it feels a little bit like those creepy movies where like you can look in a mirror and see the back of your head.
I fixed this once, but I don't remember how. And the remote. Oh, no, don't need the remote. We got something. All right, we'll just go with that screen for now. Man, and now you're sneezing. It is all coming off the rails. It is all coming off the rails. So Biden's shipment of these weapons is actually illegal under U.S. law. Now, I know you may, many of you are going, well, of course it's illegal. It's a war criminal. But no, this is like actual U.S. congressional law. And here's why. And I'll just read from this article. This is Huffington Post. Israel's limits on aid for Gaza make U.S. military support illegal. Joe Biden is committing an apparent violation of U.S. law, they say, because of Section 6201 of the Foreign Assistance Act, which says that presidents cannot provide military aid to foreign countries if they know those countries are barring the delivery of U.S. humanitarian relief. Meaning we have a law on the books that says...
It is remarkable that we have a law like that.
It's remarkable that we have any laws. But we have a law on the books that says if they're blocking our own aid from getting in, we can't then send them bombs to drop as well. Like that law exists on the U.S. books.
But here's the thing. It's like it doesn't...
Because the government and our laws are stupid, so it doesn't...
Well, right. It does. Well, no, but it doesn't... It's not that it doesn't... Like, I am surprised to know that we have that law. But I'm also not surprised to hear that the Biden administration is not giving a shit about it, because that's what they do. That's what every single administration does. So, yeah, I'm not at all shocked.
Okay, fair enough. I didn't think people would be shocked, but I just think it's funny that's...
No, I agree. I agree. But like, so here's the thing. There was a I can't remember where, but there was a court case in the US that basically said you can't, you have to stop shipping weapons to Israel. And then that like a higher court was like, nah. And we've seen this happen in other, like I believe in Germany and the Netherlands, like several countries have basically brought cases against the government saying you can't support Israel. This is genocide. And the governments are like, either they just outright ignore it, or they basically engage in this lawfare back and forth. And they're like, well, while we were figuring out if I'm allowed to do this, I'm going to keep doing this. So,
Right. Ankh, thank you for the donation. Ankh is asking if we're siblings. No, we're partners in crime.
Do we look similar? I feel like we don't.
I don't feel like we do. Your goatee is not.
Look, okay, I'm working on it. And I really would appreciate if you were a little bit more understanding. I also have yet to read that article, so.
Oh, really? Then I won't highlight that article.
Sorry, I keep wanting to.
That's right. So I always like to bring the protest videos into this live stream to show people that there are good things happening in terms of people standing up in the face of these lawmakers. One of them I bring in frequently is Medea Benjamin, but this actually has to do with how even in Medea's interaction, she's in the halls of Congress almost every day. Code Pink. Even in Medea's interactions, we are now seeing a weakening of many of these politicians. And yes, we can give our rant about how they're meaningless. The politicians are meaningless in a moment. But even these, like our Congress is completely and utterly bought out by the Israel lobby. And yet even these Congress people are getting a little iffy on where they stand on Israel. So this is a short video. Let's just watch this.
Are you going to commit to not voting for any bill that includes money to Israel? What about this issue of sending more money to Israel?
I don't know.
I don't know. So last speaker would have said definitely send more. I'm not pleased. I mean, there's starvation going on. There's humanitarian crisis.
Don't vote for any more money for Israel. Majority of Americans don't want to send more military weapons to Israel.
Well, so I think that's great. That's what I want.
No more money.
I think we're headed in that direction.
Please vote no more money.
All right.
We want you to look at the money for Israel and say, I will not, in good conscience, vote for any more military aid.
I remember my conversation I had with you today.
Thank you so much.
That's about the best you can get from
I know.
a lawmaker.
Well, and
I will remember your conversation.
And here's the thing, like some people might say like, oh, what does it matter? Like, I don't know why Medea is taking the time to do this, but here's the thing. Like, I don't partake in electoralism, and I also don't have like the stomach to do what Medea does. So I give her mad props just for that.
The stomach is amazing.
I
feel like she's like a troll warrior. Like she goes in to battle, like,
Yes.
and you're like, why would you even walk into that din of just disgusting, just sucking and fucking of orgy of gross corruption and parasites? Why would you open that door? Like, that's how I feel. But
tell me how you really feel. No, but here's the thing. I do think it is important. Just like when climate defiance, it disrupts, the heads of Exxon giving a speech. These people should never feel comfortable. And they should know that we know where they are, where to find them, and that we're not going to leave them alone. They should know this, and they should feel that. And they should feel afraid whenever they go outside. Like, this is the thing. They should, I hope that these people are like, oh my God, I really hope Medea doesn't show up today. I hope they feel that every time they step into Congress. So here's this gets into like the diversity of tactics, right? It's like, that's not my tactic, but I love that she does that. And I think it's so important that she does that. And I think I'm going to get up on my like little Jewish mother soapbox for a second, but it's like on the left, there is such a problem of shit slinging. Like, I don't agree with that tactic. That tactic's dumb. I don't like it. It's like, it doesn't matter. Like, if you personally like it, is it hurtful to anyone? Is it absolutely pointless? Like petitions. Is it totally pointless? Unless the answer
that's
to
not
those.
true. Don't you remember that petition where it was 130,000 people signed it and then it changed everything?
I do.
Do you remember
Yes. Yeah. So that was sarcasm, by the way.
that? She got that one.
So unless it's something that hurts people, like that, you know, it puts people's lives you know, at risk, like you're, I don't know, like walking into a quicksand. I don't know why I thought of that, but like, or it's totally pointless. It's like, just let people do the thing. Let people do the thing, and you can support it by, like, you could either passively just be like, hey, not my thing, but you do you, or you can also just be in solidarity with it. Like, this is not my thing, Medea, but I love that she does it, and it is important. So
we need to find like a atheist, or at least a non-committal version of it.
God bless
of it's the Lord's work.
Oh, I was thinking of, because I grew up in the South, I'm so used to hearing people being like, oh, God bless her for doing that. Like, I wish there was some way of saying that. Because I want to say like, God bless you, Medea, but I don't.
Same
Because
idea. Same idea. Yeah, it's the Spaghetti Monster's work. Remember Spaghetti Monster?
is that the weird colander hat?
Yeah, you wear a
people?
colander on your head, and it was basically someone saying that religious practices should be allowed, and it's Spaghetti Monster. Anyway.
I mean, if you're allowed to eat crackers that are supposed to be some dead Jewish guy that was like died 2,000 years ago, I don't see why you can't wear a colander on your head.
Those crackers sound stale. So let's jump to a 20-second clip of Noam Chomsky, because I know you'll have a lot to say about this. And this also speaks to, it's a talking point that Bill Maher put out there and others have been putting out there about, well, it's an old Zionist talking point of, well, the Jews historically have this land. So you go back 2,000 years and it's Jewish land. And so that's why they should be allowed to murder children, is because, 2,000-3,000 years ago, this was Jewish land. And anyway, here's Chomsky.
The biblical rights, which have absolutely no status, none. Nobody in the world can say 2,000 years ago, here's my story of what happened, so therefore I have a right to do it now. You can't live in a world like that. Nobody in the world ever makes such a claim. You want to make it, okay, but then just admit, I'm out of the world, distinct from the world. If you really want to play that game, Palestinians have more of a right to claim to be descendants. Palestinians have more of a right to claim to be descendants of the population from 2,000 years ago than I do. So you don't want to get into that game.
Amen. And also, he's looking great.
He's looking like what's the gold rings thing?
What words are you trying to string? He's looking like Gandalf. Is
Gandalf,
that what you're saying?
Thank you. He's a bit of a Gandalf, but yeah, there's so many points about this. But I like his, that you take a white modern American Jew like myself, and you say, like, do I have more direct, am I more directly descended from the people in in Palestine or Israel than Palestinians? No, not even. There's no way in hell that I have more direct descendant blood from the people 3,000 years ago. But on top of that, as Loki said in an interview on this show a couple of weeks ago, it's like saying that Londinium was a Roman colony initially, and therefore anyone from Italy could just show up and say, these are our houses.
Well, and what, like, Istanbul used to be Constantinople. Should we turn that into the Eastern Roman Empire again? Like, that would, because it was, or even if you went like not even that far back, like let's say the Irish who fled during, it's not a famine, it was starvation, much like what's happening in Gaza is not a famine, it is starvation. If they went back to Ireland and they kicked Irish people out of their homes because they were like, hey, my great-great-grandfather fled Ireland, like, you'd be like, what? That's bogus. But they haven't even, like, they are even closer on the timeline than these supposed Jews are. And here's the other thing. I would recommend that people check out the book, The Invention of the Jewish People by Shlomo Sand. It is an amazing book that talks about how most of us today, Ashkenazi and Sephardic Jews, now there are Jews known as Mizrahi Jews who were once called like Palestinians, but they couldn't call them that, so they gave them a new category. But like the Sephardic, which speaks to like Southern Europe and Northern Africa Jews, and then Ashkenazi, which is like Eastern Europe, most of us are descended from converts. Shh, don't tell anyone. And like, because that's not supposed to be the case, right? Because Jews are not supposed to proselytize and Jews aren't supposed to convert people. But here's the thing, that there was a lot of conversion going on throughout the, like, you know, like, let's say, particularly when Islam started, you know, coming onto the scene in like the 600s and the 700s. Like there was a lot of kind of, oh, this is a new idea. I kind of like this. And so a lot of us never had any connection to that land. And again, even if you did, it is not more valid than the people who have been living there, the Palestinians. And again, like there are Palestinian Jews. Where do they fit into this?
Yeah.
Where do the Palestinian Christians fit into this? You know, where do the Bedouins fit into this? Like there's so many, it becomes this flat and flimsy debate. And I'd also I'm not going to take time to go through it, but we talked about it on the podcast or the stream once before, the three Israels, and how the original, I'll just say the original term.
One of them is our neighbor Israel Jones, but you don't know him.
Yeah. The original term for the word Israel, it comes from the people who wrestle with God, because Jews are not supposed to just accept religion. We are supposed to wrestle with faith. And it comes from a story of in the Torah of Jacob, literally like wrestling with an angel, and it becomes this idea of the people who wrestle with God. So, and then I'd also talked about when we see Israel turn up in like texts talking about that, you might read at like a Passover dinner or something, also not talking about the modern nation state of Israel. There were no such things as nation states.
Yeah, nation states are a pretty modern advent.
And so here's the other, like, that's the thing. It's like, and even if you see that the name, it corresponds, okay, well, what does that mean? Like in Greek, for instance, Istanbul is still called Constantinopolis. But does that mean that it is like, that it has to have like the Greek perceived, and I know the Greeks and the Turks have a thing, I'm not, but like, does that mean that it should still be Constantinople from 1500 years ago? Of course not. So it's like this idea that the modern nation state of Israel has like a through line from 2000 years ago to today is just, it's like so remarkably dumb and ahistorical. So yeah.
And one last thing I'll add in here before we are headed over to rumble.com/LeeCamp in a moment. It is free to watch there, by the way, to keep watching this live stream. But I'll just add in here that a clip has been going around of Bill Maher saying, you know, they're calling, all the media is saying that Israel's colonizers. First of all, the mainstream media is not saying that at all. So he sounds like Fox News. Honestly, there's very little difference between Bill Maher and Fox News any longer. But he goes, they're calling Israelis colonizers, and excuse me, 2,000 years ago, this was our land or something like that. And then he relates it to land acknowledgement of the Native Americans. And he goes, if you do the land acknowledgement for the Native Americans, why don't we do that for the Jews in Israel, land acknowledgement? And he goes, if it works for the Native Americans, and there's so many levels of this that is so stupid, but one of them
I think he's begging to have his house stolen by an indigenous person.
That was my point. Is one of the biggest ones is, what do you mean works for the Native Americans? When we say land acknowledgement, does that mean they get everyone's house? Does that mean they can walk up and go, land acknowledgement, ours? That has never happened. Ever. There's not one instance of that. Yet Bill Maher's going, it's working for the Native Americans. And
I think according to Maher, we should organize some folks to go knock on the White House door, be like, acknowledgement, this is Piscataway land, and then they get the White House. I think they get the White House. That's what he's talking about, right? That's how that works.
They get to change the name to something less offensive.
No, they just get the building and everything in it.
And actually, they get to put a different building on that spot that is not built by slaves and called the White House. Okay, so that being said, we are headed over to rumble.com/LeeCamp, as well as my locals page. We have story on policing, update on new fascist police measures across the U.S. We also have a story about the hilarity of AI, but it's not really hilarity. It's kind of horrifying.
It's really dark.
And in a few minutes after that, for the special segment, I'm going to be getting into a mind-blowing update on the CIA and JFK. But okay, all of this.
I thought that was just for Gov Six. Look at you.
Yeah, I know. Rumble.com/Lee Camp and my locals page. That's where all of this is going. If you're not going to follow us there, remember it's free at Rumble. I hope you at least will click subscribe and click share and all those good things. Thank you, Gene, for the donation. Can you please discuss WPATH files sometime? I don't know what those are.
I'm not up on the acronyms.
I'm not up on the acronym.
When people use acronyms, I don't know. I'm like,
I'll have to find out what that is. But okay, we're headed over there and we're going to keep going here.
the World Professional Association for Transgender Health.
Really?
That's
Okay.
what WPATH showed up in Google.
I'll check it out. But all right, rumble.com/Lee Camp. We got to keep the train on the road or the tracks or the something. See you there, rumble.com/Lee Camp. That's rumble.com/Lee Camp, as well as my locals page.